Hello and welcome to The Agenda on Politics Social. My name is Graham Hughes and I'm joined, as always, on this show by Phil, a different bias Moorhouse. How you doing, Phil? You all right?
I'm very hot.
You're very hot?
Too
Come up
hot.
to Durham. It's freezing up here.
Yeah, you keep boasting about this.
I'm not boasting. It's horrible in the winter.
It's
I'm
not.
just trying to tell
you can put on layers if you're cold.
No.
Put on layers.
No, because you get your fingerless gloves on the keyboard and your fingertips are getting frostbite.
Well, move your fingers a bit quicker. Get some blood flowing.
No, it doesn't work. Okay, so just before we get on with the discussion, first of all, Anuksha, thank you very much for joining the channel and becoming a superstar. So thank you. Welcome to the channel. I'll just do a little thing that says, welcome, you are awesome. Thank you. Also, we've got Elle in the chat and Katrina and we've got Sarah and Saz and others. If you'd like to join our friends in the chat there, all you need to do is seek out that little subscribe button under the video, or to the next to the video, or above the video. I don't know what format you're watching this on. But if you press that and wait for a few minutes, you'll be able to join in with the discussion. So, Phil, I got a very concerned phone call this week of a fellow constituent here in Durham who was very concerned that Reform were going to become the next government, at least in part, and Farage was going to become our next Prime Minister. And there was a big poll that came out on the UKIP. Sorry, UKIP. What was wrong with me today?
That poll is. I will just. Oh, that poll. Okay,
which came at the end of June, which showed that if the election was held today, or at the end of June, that RefUK would not have a majority, but they would have the largest party, and therefore they'll be likely to go into coalition with the Tories.
So, I mean, there's a couple of things there. First of all, I think Reform UK will be the next government. That's not me saying it will be in a few years' time, but at some point, like if Labour win the next election, at some point they don't win, right? It doesn't matter how well they're doing or how badly they're doing, and the next government's going to be a Reform government. Who else is it going to be? Not going to be anyone else. So that is coming. We just have to hold it off as long as possible so that Nigel Farage ends up with emphysema or something like that. But in terms of the sort of polling side of it, if there were an election, if we had a mad situation where there was going to be an election this year after only having formed the government last year, Labour's strategy has been short-term pain for long-term gain. They wouldn't have done that. They'd have done short-term gain. Everything would have been better.
Sorry,
right?
strategy? Are you implying that Labour have a strategy, Phil?
They do have. They actually do have a policy strategy.
On that one.
No.
Really?
No.
They have a strategy?
They some of their politics has been ill-advised, as we've discussed at length. But they do. At the end of the day, it's really this simple. Our public services are knackered. Our national infrastructure is knackered. We can't grow the economy without boosting it, right? That takes money. We can only borrow so much. It doesn't this idea that because what we're spending the borrowing on is going to give a return, we can just, if we've got £100 billion worth of investment plans, why don't we just borrow £100 billion? We're going to get our money back. Gilt investors don't see it like that. Like Rachel Reeves borrowed an extra 32 billion and that caused a wobble, right? They were just about okay with it, just about. So what do? If you promise, now again, was it a good idea to promise? No. Was it a good idea to promise to not raise things like income tax? There's a really good video on What's Left, which is a small channel, unfortunately. I had Dan Needle on, and he was laying out exactly what I've been trying to say over the last few years about how the wealth taxes of the sort the populists are talking about is complete bollocks. It's complete bollocks. Land tax is not, however, but land tax obviously has political pitfalls.
Okay. But before we go on, Anuska has dropped a £5 super chat into the super chat fund. First super chat of the afternoon. Thank you, Anuska. Thank you very much, Graham. I'm rejoining just as the UK will rejoin the EU. Thanks very much for that. And also, people saying, Graham, you've spoiled my weekend now talking about Farage getting in. I personally don't think that he'll make it to Prime Minister for reasons that
I
you
think
outlined.
There's a serious risk he does, but it's not. People basing it on polling right now is madness, because the polling right now is based on Labour are storing up this infrastructure building. They're having to pay for it first, like anyone else has to pay for it first. We had a bloody extension done. We had to pay for it first, right? In instalments, we did it in instalments. So Labour doing it in instalments in a sense, but there was still an upfront cost, and that's what's happened. So all we've had is the cost, and we haven't had any of the benefits yet. In next year, you get some of the benefits. You get the renters' rights coming through, the employment's rights coming through. So you get some of the benefits. You're also going to start to see some things being built. In 2027, some of those things will be completed. So we will have, in some of the poorest areas, which are some of the key battlegrounds, the best start centres, or sure start centres as they were. So we'll also have, more of this, and they're boosting from what were sure start centres with greater medical facilities locally. You won't be able to miss that. At the end of the day, if you've got medical facilities in your community that you'd normally have had to go into town for, you can't miss, even if you don't need it at any one time, you can't miss that it's there.
I get that, Phil, but minimum wage was brought up to £12.21, I think 21. It was, in April this year, and Labour haven't made any gains because of that. That is a real, obvious thing to a lot of people on low incomes that has happened, and that Labour have got no benefit out of it whatsoever.
How do people know Labour did it? You might think it's obvious because obviously the government sets it. How many people listen to the budget? Labour, this is again comes down to LC, right? Because they're not, whenever they decide to get a load of journalists, Labour comes. Whenever they decide to get a load of journalists round to talk about something they want in the newspapers, it's always about pissing immigration.
Yeah.
The one thing they shouldn't be talking about, they have to do some things on it, but they shouldn't be talking about it. No. They should be getting people round. Why weren't they talking about the fact that they've delivered that promise for community police officers? Why weren't they doing that? Why weren't they talking about over winter? They were talking about it, but why didn't they make a real big noise about the fact that NHS waiting lists were coming down over winter? Why aren't they every week talking about one of the if they spent one day a week talking about something in the employment rights bill, they could be doing that for the next half a year. Things are in it. But why aren't they doing that? That's their problem. So why don't they get any credit for the fact in minimum wage went up a lot? Because they didn't shout about it.
Yeah. So when
there
were
one of those things that happen. When
there were healthcare centres down the road, instead of having to go into town, they're not going to shout about it. No one will know it was them. They're making the same mistake that the EU made, which is to just put a little tiny plaque on the side of a massive football stadium that said co-funded by the EU, and they thought people would notice and appreciate it.
They will shout about that. No, they will shout about that because it's something physical. They will definitely go out and shout about that. They will.
Well, I mean, getting an extra £2 every hour that you work, that's monumental. Yeah. That is huge.
Should be.
That is a huge injection of money into people's pay packets. And the
problem is...
Hardly anyone knows.
Yeah, I know. That's their problem, their comms. Honestly, almost everything comes down... They have had some bad political advice as well, but almost everything is literally down to their comms. There's nothing more to it than that. There's nothing more or less to it than that. It's literally their attitude towards communications. Almost everything is down to that.
We've talked about their comms quite a lot and how much of a disaster it has been, and it is absolutely an unmitigated disaster. I mean, there's just been no up points from it, from the AI use of animal people to try and sell something, to these stupid fucking videos, and they spend so much money on these videos that nobody watches to put onto their YouTube page that no one subscribed to. Go on.
So but almost everything. I mean, you can look at it in reverse as well. How did the Tories kept getting elected with austerity? Because comms, the way the newspapers phrased it all for them.
That's what I keep saying. The policies don't really matter they matter to us, but when it comes to winning elections, policies matter less than communication.
Well, it's the perception of the policies. For example, earlier this week, Andrea Jenkins had been asked questions by Krishna Gurumurthy. It was at their women's conference.
Yes.
She wasn't, and they're big on asylum, right? She couldn't name a single asylum policy that her party has. She couldn't name a single women's policy that her party has.
It was a disaster.
Like several minutes of her just basically saying no policies, being asked about them, cannot name a single policy. So it's the perception. But people, if you ask a Reform UK supporter, they think they've got policies. Someone in the chat's just there alluded to the fact they might vote Green or the your party. I bet you can't name any of their policies. I bet you couldn't take a conversation about their policies.
Tim's going to get onto the internet now. He's going to have a look up the Green Manifesto.
He's going to have to, because he don't. I guarantee, if I were here now and I said to him, "Name me their policies," you couldn't. You literally couldn't name any of your party policies because they don't have any. We know they were written in the 19th century. We sort of know what the flavour of them is going to be. You don't know what they are because they haven't even announced the name of their pissing party. And don't call it your party, because Zara Sultan will come round to your house and kick your head in. And as for the Green Party, there's a load of people. They think they know Green Party policies. They think they do, but when I've sort of said to you, "Oh, what about this policy then?" That's not one of that. It is. It's in their manifesto. Why didn't you know about that? Why didn't you know about that? People, they vote. People who are voting for these parties are voting based on a feeling, not what they actually do. Like, who's going to tell me Labour are over, seriously, when they're boosting workers' rights, boosting social affordable housing, boosting renters' rights, boosting the NHS, boosting clean energy? All of these things are materially in the works now. Who, honestly, is going to say we don't like this?
No one. But they're not going to know that Labour gave
they
it
are
to them.
That's literally what they're saying.
No, they're not saying that people won't like them. They're saying that... Well, who's saying that they won't like them?
Well, there's people in the chat saying it.
No,
there's people in my comments saying it.
I think there's people saying that, first of all, Labour have let a lot of people down. A lot of people who voted for Labour in last year, they've been let down.
They've let trans people down. They've let trans people down. Who else?
Disabled people who they affected the mental health of by saying they were going after 5 billion
but
and then changing their minds at the last minute. A bit traumatic there.
Yes, yeah. But nonetheless, Labour, in the here and now, what is the outlook for disabled people? All disabled people, it's better, because they still get all the benefits of the extra support, and Labour, as a collective, have put the kibosh on the cuts.
Yes, but people don't remember that. People won't remember that. They'll feel like they're getting the same thing as they used to, but they had that added stress of a couple of months where they thought Labour were going to come and take their pip.
But who are we trying to talk to? Are we trying to talk to people that are sheeple? Are we trying to talk to people who are capable of critical thinking? Like, who's the audience? Because there's a difference.
The audience on this channel is people who are good at critical thinking, but I'm talking about
that's fine. So we don't have to go down that nonsense.
On side, and Labour are failing in so many ways.
But no, it's one or the other, Graham. It's either a perception or it's real. Either Labour are they're letting trans people down. That's undeniable. But either Labour are letting people down, or people perceive that they're letting them down and it's a false perception. It's got to be one or the other. Well, I'm going to argue with you that they're not letting people down. They are boosting the rights and incomes of tens of millions of people right now.
Yes. Well, that was my point before about the fact that they brought in a higher minimum wage, right? And I can't argue that is a good thing that Labour did, and they have improved people's lives as a result. But the perception, the emotion behind it, that stopped there. People don't perceive it as a thing that Labour gave them.
That's different to saying Labour have let people down. That is saying that Labour have not explained to people how they're actually building them up.
Yes.
There's a crucial difference.
Yeah, but they've let me down.
What's real?
They've let me, as a non-trans person, as a non-disabled person, they've let me down because their comms have been so shit. Because I'm worrying now, and my mental health is being impacted by the idea that Nigel Farage could be the Prime Minister of this country, take us out of the European Convention of Human Rights, end on any dreams of rejoining the EU, and create this kind of disgusting ethno-state where people who don't look the right colour aren't allowed out the houses past 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, so they're massively, and again, that's also a comms issue. They're massively getting it wrong in terms of dancing to Farage's beat on the immigration stuff, particularly asylum. But in terms of the EU side of things, we're heading towards the EU. It's really that simple. That's the direction of travel. That's the direction of travel. Basically, Keir Starmer's driving a bus towards the EU and he's saying, no, we're not going to the EU. We're going to stop at Dover. Are we bollocks going to stop at Dover? But if we did, let's say he did stop the bus at Dover and said, that's it, we're not going any further, I did tell you, then we can say, right, out you get, we'll get a different driver. But until we do, we're in the right direction. Someone just put a good comment there. It says, in terms of the bad political advice, do I think it's McSweeney acting on his own or McSweeney acting under direction from Glasman? I strongly suspect McSweeney is... I think what McSweeney has done is been responsible for gathering a lot of these people into Downing Street. So he's gathered a load of people who's thinking, like Starmer completely trusts McSweeney's political advice. And I think McSweeney is trusting other people's political advice. And I don't think any of them know what they're doing. I think is what's happening.
Can't argue with that.
I don't think it's malicious. I think there's just a load of people who, because they themselves don't really know what they're doing, and obviously that means they're not great at hiring. It's a bit like if you work for a large company, you know, and sometimes you'll get people promoted into a position or hired into a position and they don't know what they're doing, but the reason is because the person who hired them don't know the job either. Not all managers can do the job of the people they manage.
Well, I mean,
where they can do the job, you'll get better appointments. But where they don't, you're more likely to get conned or wangled by someone who sounds like plausible but isn't.
But I mean, you're not entertaining the idea of malicious intent there, and I am. I'm
just saying there's no proof there's malicious intent.
Okay, I think there is, but we'll come to that in a moment. Brad W 8102, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Labour could improve their comms by hiring Prince Andrew. I fucking agree. Seriously, that's how bad it is. But on the malicious side of it, there is Blue Labour within Labour, which are a bunch of people who want to make Labour more conservative.
So that's socially conservative. That's fine, because Broadchurch and all that, and again, people like to pretend this doesn't exist, but it is a fact, a massive number of left-wing people in this country, which means in Labour as well, are socially conservative. That is a fact. What the problem is they have an influence that outsizes the amount of support they can gather, which should be obvious because the polling is dire. And it shouldn't be this dire. I can understand if polling was not chipper, because again, we are in that. A lot of people are impatient. There are some things that are not Labour's fault. The public are impatient after 14 years of being lied to about green shoots of recovery and how austerity would fix everything and it didn't, and how Brexit would then fix everything and didn't.
I still feel like we're living in austerity.
No, we're not. And how, because spending has gone up. I mean, that's black and white. Lots of people try to do nuance because it's clickbaity. There is no nuance. Either your public spending has gone up or it has gone down, and it's gone up massively. But I can appreciate how some people might feel it, because what Labour have done in order to spend more on infrastructure, which will have a payout by the next election, they are snipping some day-to-day spending. So, for example, like the bus tickets and stuff like that. And they tried to do it with some disability payments as well, of course, in a fairly big way. But that's not austerity. That's a bit like, you know, if you undergo austerity on a personal level, that means you cut back on what you spend. Whereas if I say I'm going to cut back on like chocolate, but I'm going to spend more on crisps, that's not austerity. Even though like Cadbury's might disagree with me.
So, I mean, apart from the comms, what policy mistakes do you think Labour have made?
So the policy mistakes were winter fuel allowance without checking first that people would wear it, because taking money off pensioners is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
The second one
caused
was
by that as well.
The second one was anything causes stress. Labour can do the right thing and it causes stress, right? Because the stress is caused by the way it's presented in the media. The second one was the disability cuts, because first of all, they knew they were lying about the rationale for it. They knew they were making an economic argument. It was a way to save money. But at the same time, they also talked about helping people into work when they're taking money off people already in work. That was a policy disaster. The farmers' inheritance tax was a policy disaster because, as the likes of Dan Needle have pointed out, you could actually raise more money without touching farmers. So why wouldn't you just do that? Why would you not just do that? That being said, he also makes the point that farmers are massively overblowing it. But nonetheless, it was an argument Labour didn't need to have. They could have just said, because they're still letting people dodge taxes with their inheritance tax move. and they're screwing some farmers over. Most farmers are rich. Don't give me that bollocks about poor farmers. Most of them are rich. But you do get the odd one that's not. And why screw them over? So those are policy cock-ups. There's the other one in terms of asylum. Now, they do have to be fairly hardcore on asylum, just because of, that's just what public would expect. But I still think they're getting their policy wrong in not setting up processing in northern France, because then you cut out the small boats problem completely. At the moment, setting up returns agreements, that's really good. The returns agreement they've got with France, but is it going to stop the boats? No, it's not. If you set up a processing centre in France, would that stop the boats? Yes, overnight.
Why
because
don't they
any
do
boats
it?
that come across, I can only guess. I think the reason they're doing it is because they'll think to themselves, two problems with it. First of all, if you make it easy for people to claim asylum, more people will claim asylum, because not everyone will come across in a small boat. But my issue with that is the numbers are so small. People are blowing the numbers out of proportion because of the visibility of the boats and the hotels. But the numbers are actually really small. If you double the numbers would still be really small. And I think the second reason is they might think EU countries would do a dirty, and they end up copying for a load of people who've already claimed asylum in the EU and failed, and they don't want to be taking those. But I'm sure they could have come up with some agreement with the EU on that.
Hang on. If that can be the rule.
That's my speculation.
If you apply and you've applied already for the EU and they've turned you down, then it's an automatic no. That's quite a simple thing to put in
It's
action.
not a simple thing, though.
Because you can
because
check.
there's still a process. I know you can. You can't check because you don't have that information that EU do. What if they don't share it with you?
Well, you have a chat with the EU.
Because they have their own immigration issues. They've got their own populations.
Yeah, and we need to be
and
working with them.
They've got better reason to.
It would be good to have those conversations. Before we go on, Phil, before the super chats go off the screen here, we've got Colin Baker, my favourite doctor, to £5 super chat. Thank you. Would anyone be prepared to vote tactically for the Tories to keep out reform?
I've already done so. I'm not proud of. Well, I am. I know. I had to.
In your
locals? The only way to try and stop. Yeah, no. Although I would in the locals as well. The mayoral election, it didn't work, and I knew it wouldn't work. Andrew Jenkins still got in, but I had to at least try. And the only way to stop Andrew Jenkins, I actually went. Although I didn't tell them to do it, but my eldest stepdaughter and my wife agreed to do the same thing. I didn't tell them to, by the way, but I told them I was doing it. And my stepdaughter was coming out really anxious about it. Are you sure, Phil, that the Labour candidate can't win? I said, he's nowhere, mate. And when the results came out, she was then satisfied that he was absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
Nowhere. So I've already done it. I am quite clear. I am very pragmatic. For me, there is some people have described me as black and white, but in actual fact, I can absolutely see the shades of grey. There is a sliding scale of evil, right? Reform UK are further up that scale than the Tories. It's really that simple.
Okay, so
there are some Tories who will act. I know if we let in a Kenny Badenoch Tory government next, right, it'll be absolutely horrendous. The last one was horrendous. This one will be horrendous. I'm not making any bones about that. But what I am saying is reform will be worse.
They'll change the leader before then.
Even so, it doesn't matter. But the next Tory government, if the Tories could win a majority, they would be disastrous. But a Reform UK government would be more disastrous.
I've got a better idea than voting Tory. I think that we should take over the Tory party. All join up. All of us just join up. Join the Tories.
And do what? Yeah, but do what?
And take over.
Yeah, but do what?
Well, we foment dissent amongst the ranks about Kemi Badenoch, and then we make them have a leadership election.
This would be like buying the Telegraph and then turning it into something more like Byline Times. People would just stop buying it. Like you might destroy.
No, I'm not thinking of making the Tories more progressive, because that's impossible. But they're not. They're not RefUK, are they?
No, well, some of them are. That's the thing. Some Tories are, but there are also some Tories who are not. They're more moderate, and they act as a bit of a brake. Not an effective brake, because they're shit, but they still act as a bit of a brake. So a Tory government will always be less bad than a Reform UK government. Yeah. So for me, it's really clear. I practice what I preach. we have a system that demands tactical voting if you want your vote to count. It demands that you vote for one of the top two candidates. It's really that simple. Occasionally you get a three-way, but generally speaking.
But with if there was an election tomorrow and RefUK did get the majority of seats, but didn't get an overall majority, they would go in a coalition with the Tories to have.
I'm not sure they would, you know.
Well, we've discussed this before, but before we go on, Mrs. Paula Thomas, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Phil, as one of the potential victims of the PIP debacle, it sure feels like Austerity Part 2. And that's my point. I know how
it can feel like it.
People are feeling, and I'm talking to people all over the country, and the feeling towards Labour right now is that Labour has done them no good whatsoever and actually actively tried to harm them.
You don't need to ask anyone about that. You can see it in the polling. And I don't just mean the voting intention polls, I mean more detailed polling. You can see that. But again, there's a difference between perception and reality. Like someone was asking me earlier today.
Yes.
So if you're saying people are better off compared to this time last year, how come people don't feel it? It's because the cost of living crisis was allowed to get so badly out of control that although Labour have made people better off compared to this time last year, nonetheless, it's still not, there's still people are still in the discomfort zone.
Yes.
Millions of people are still in the discomfort zone. So they're closer to comfort. No, I'm not. They're closer to, even though I'm making less money, but I'm making too much. They're closer to the comfort zone, but they're still in the discomfort zone. That's why people don't feel it, because people don't want to feel, they're not looking back at their budgets from last year and going, oh, well, actually last August I struggled more than this August, so yeah, I'm better. People don't do that. They don't even write their budgets down. I've lived that life where you just try to make sure the month ends before your money ends. So you don't write it down.
That's fair enough. Okay, but let's go back to this whole thing of if they have a coalition. So you don't think that the Tories and
I think it's
RefUK
unlikely
would have a coalition? Because I think they absolutely would, without question.
So I'll tell you why I don't think they would. Because they would be the Liberal Democrats in the 2010-2015 coalition, and they would think they will cop for the same outcome in 2015. I think they'd be very wary of it. And I also think, like, if it didn't give them a strong majority, this coalition, there'd be the risk it would collapse anyway, because some Tory MPs would absolutely refuse to go along with some of the shit Reform UK would try to pull. Again, for fear, even if it's not out of principles, for fear of their own seats. Honestly, the Liberal Democrats, 2010 to 2015, was a cautionary tale in jumping into bed with the government and then basically letting them do whatever they wanted.
But some of the things that the Tories want to do is also the things that RefUK want to do. They want to roll back any kind of social progress.
Oh, yeah.
They also want to pull us out of the European Convention of Human Rights.
But they can do that without being in coalition. They can do... no, that's not true. No.
Well, Kemi Badenoch wants to pull us out, doesn't she?
No, Kemi Badenoch doesn't. She's now saying she's open to the idea because she thinks that's what she has to do to fend off Robert Jenrick.
Okay.
But most Conservatives don't.
I think this is going to be the new. This is the new Brexit, though.
They do not want to be the Liberal Democrats 2015. And the thing is, when you talk about rolling back things like, they'll roll back workers' rights, they'll jump on the anti-net zero stuff. They can do that.
Get rid of the short start schemes again.
Yeah, they can do all of that without jumping into bed with Reform UK. They can do all of that in opposition. They can just say to Nigel Farage, they can support his government. They can say, look, there's some things you're going to do we'll be happy with. We'll vote with you on that, but we're not giving you a blank check, because that will risk them ending up like the Lib Dems in 2015, who had they were almost completely wiped out. Almost completely wiped out.
Well, I mean, if Labour had an election tomorrow, if the government had an election tomorrow, or if we had an election tomorrow,
again,
Labour would lose something like 200 seats. Like that.
The thing is, though, these discussions are pointless because there isn't an election tomorrow. You have to be able to think in terms of what's coming before there is an election.
Yes.
The election doesn't have to be before summer 2029, by which time the NHS is better off, people's pay is better off, the best art centres are there.
And Labour will do
Local
their
transport
6
is
weeks
better
of
off.
campaigning.
You
Meanwhile,
don't know
the
that.
Tories and RefUK are campaigning every day. But they've
Never
got in
know.
their head, oh, it's a long way away. Oh, don't worry about it. You know,
No, it's not
we'll
a case,
sort it out
don't
when we
worry
get
about
there.
it. What I'm saying
Labour
to
don't
you
seem to
is...
be worried. Otherwise, they'll be doing... I mean, they seem
because
to be
they know
panicking
they've got all
about
this stuff in the works.
asylum claims,
They've
but they're
got
not
all this
panicking
stuff
about where they are in the polls.
They've got all this stuff in the works, that's why.
And
They know that they know from, and I can tell you this from polling again, the polling says there are shitloads of Reform UK voters. They're not against Labour. They say they will happily vote Labour at the next election if they deal with the cost of living in the NHS. Labour plan on dealing with the cost of living in the NHS. Why would they panic? When the polling actually says they would lose an election tomorrow, but they would win it in 2029. Why would they panic when that's what the polling actually says?
Because at the moment, Labour are polling worse than they have ever done in government before.
That's not what the polls say.
Even though that's just now, every one of those votes they have to win back. It's not a case of, oh, well, you know, people just tacitly vote for us. You know.
I've just told you, Graham, those people polled already say they will vote Labour at the next election if certain things are done, and we know those things are being done.
Okay, so what's the percentage on that of people saying, "Oh, well, I'll vote for RefUK," but now you know,
it's about 2/3 of people who at the moment say they'd vote for Reform UK. So that would put that on and I don't believe that, by the way, because some people will be saying that and they'll judge it differently. That would straight away put Labour on over 40%. That's what the polling says right now. This is the problem. There's people, I'm not having a pop at you, but there's people who don't understand how polls work. And they look at a headline figure and go, it says this. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. This is the problem we have. There's not enough people explaining how statistics and polling works. The polling says if there were an election tomorrow, this is how they would vote. But there isn't an election tomorrow. That's a bit like saying, if people were given the option of a shit sandwich or £1 million tomorrow, they'd vote for the £1 million. Well, of course they bloody would, but that's not the.
In a few years' time, they'll vote for the shit sandwich because reasons.
No,
come on.
No,
I'm sorry, but look, people who have been a lifelong Labour voter who are now saying they will never vote Labour again, and they've gone to the Greens or they've gone to Corbyn's thing. And then you've got people who have gone over to Reform. You've got to get them all back now. And I know there's not going to be an election. Well, there's local elections. Labour have got their arses handed to them and the Tories in the local elections by RefUK. I'm now living in a community here that is a county council.
Why did they get their arse handed to them?
Because they're doing so shit. Their comms are awful. They've got
that's not because they're doing
winter
shit.
fuel allowance, disability cuts, the farmers' inheritance tax, the
farmers' inheritance tax didn't affect it. That didn't affect it in the slightest. None of these places were like that. No, the winter fuel allowance was a massive own goal, right? That was a massive factor. And they knew that was the single biggest factor in Labour's problem. It's now solved.
Yeah, okay.
They shouldn't have done it in the first place, I'll grant you, but that dealt with it. Without that, they wouldn't have done. That wasn't even the lack of patience with what Labour are doing. But again, you've got, right, the election, if Labour are going to lose the next election, that election is in 2029. That election is in 2029, right? We know that. It could be in 2028, but that would be Labour knowing they're going to win it, right? So otherwise, it's 2029. You cannot judge what that is going to happen in that election by the standards of what the polls say about an election tomorrow, because there is no election tomorrow, it's in 2029. So for that, you've actually got to not jump on some populist bandwagon, and you've got to go, so what is happening in the next few years? What has my extensive decades of looking at polling and how it changes over the course of a parliament told me about how public perception can tell? And the voters themselves are telling them, because people like Maureen Common are actually asking many of the right questions. They're asking, what would it take to vote for Labour? And the things it would take are the things they're doing. There are some of them who will need Labour to stop the boats, which is another reason why I think it's absolutely madness they don't do that. But that's a relatively small number, and probably, in all honesty, the ones who are just going to vote Reform UK anyway. But the ones that Labour can win back, they win back with what they're already doing.
So
That's what they
and,
do.
and this goes back to my original point about the fact that they can make people's lives better incrementally. They're not going to turn everyone's lives around amazingly. But when good things happen in people's lives, they tend to think, "Oh, I did that. That was me." They tend not to thank the government. They tend not. They tend to blame the government when things go wrong, because that's just basic human psychology. But I think Labour are making the same mistake, and I think you're making the same mistake by going, the results will speak for themselves, and they
No,
won't.
I'm not saying the results speak for themselves. I'm saying the polling right now says Labour win the next election. That is what I'm saying. I'm not saying Labour will win the next election. I am telling you that is what the polling says, because enough people, because at the moment they're saying if there's an election tomorrow, I cannot emphasise it enough. I don't know how many times I've said it. There isn't an election tomorrow. Talking about something that isn't happening, like, what's the point? We should be saying, what are people going to do at the next election? And it's almost like you're thinking we can't tell. We can tell because people are telling us. We know what people are telling us. But let me say, just ask a question then, because Labour did have a choice, right? What they could have done is they could have maintained in real terms all the previous spending, so no one would have seen any cuts on anything, and then just invested whatever was left over, at which point technically no one would be able to say things got worse. But at the next election we wouldn't have 95% of our energy from clean sources, we wouldn't have the best start centres, we wouldn't have more affordable and social housing, we might have some improvements in the NHS, but it wouldn't be stunning. Would that be better than in a few years' time everyone's pays up, we've got the best start centres, we've got the clean energy, we've got the more social and affordable housing, and we've got much better NHS outcomes?
Obviously, I want all those things, but my point is that
you can have one. You choose one.
No, I'm saying that Labour, they've got these things in place to get going over the next few years, which would be great for us, and I don't dispute that. What I am disputing is whether people are going to put two and two together and go, "Oh, my energy bills have gone down. That must have been the government. Thank you, government. I'm going to reward you by voting for you in the next election." So especially when I keep hearing many times people who I know voted Labour in the last election, and they're not people who didn't vote for them and said, "I'm never voting for them again." Oh, I voted, and they didn't. You get a lot of Brexit voters who say they voted to remain, don't they? But I would vote for Brexit now. It's bullshit, right? People I know voted for Labour who were like, "This is it. I'm done with that party. I can't be dealing with them. I'm going to the Greens. I'm going to Lib Dems or whoever."
We will see, right? Because on that one, I'm going to say, first of all, anyone you talk to is by definition a small sample, which is why I always look at polling. I know what people are saying across the whole country, not a select number of people in an echo chamber. But secondly, we will see what people ultimately vote for, because if the choice, you're going to tell me these people are going to vote for Reform UK government, because that's what it will be.
I think there will be a minority government if Labour don't get the format they're asked.
No. The choice will be between Labour and a Reform UK government. You're going to tell me there are some people, I agree, there are some people who are crazy enough to do that because they've already done it in the past. But you're going to tell me all of these people you talk to who are used to voting Labour, when the workers' rights are all banging, when unions have a much easier time and union membership's increased, when we've got more housing, more affordable and social housing included, when we've got better energy sources, more reliable energy, when we've got a stronger economy, all of these things, and the direction of travel is positive, you're going to tell me they'll go, "No, we're going to allow Nigel Farage to come in to teach Starmer a lesson." Some people, right? Yes. Well, then
some people on the left voted for Brexit.
Some people will do that.
Yes.
If you're going to tell me,
but they won't see it like that. They won't say, "Oh, I want a RefUK government." They'll say, "I don't like Labour in its current form." A lot of people did this in 2017 and 2019. I don't like Labour with this particular leader, and so they allowed Boris Johnson to remain as Prime Minister rather than voted for Labour. Even though Labour had better policies, Labour would help, the sick and the poor.
What policies?
Pardon?
What policies?
In 2019 or 2017?
2019.
To nationalise the railways and to bring in clean energy and to give more workers' rights and more works.
None of that came through in the campaign.
Yes, I know.
Don't you remember? So people didn't know.
That's my point. They haven't got any better.
Don't read manifestos. They
Yes,
have,
I
because
know.
people do at least know.
I only say
some
that
of their
because you asked the
policies now.
question. Their campaign was
I know,
shit.
but the
The only
point
one
I
that
was trying
people
to
knew
make
about
is,
was everyone's going to get free internet, which was bullshit. It wasn't even in their fucking manifesto.
no, it wasn't, and it wasn't. And in fact, that actual point is the case in point, because on that particular day, they were supposed to talk about the NHS policies. They were supposed to explain what their policies were in the NHS. All of the front bench were ready to go out and talk about the NHS, right? And then one of his munchkins, I don't know whether it was Owen Jones or whoever, one of his advisors said, "Oh, we should just offer free internet. That'd be good. Yeah, get him to do that," and completely blindsided all of the top Labour front bench.
Yeah,
Who've been prepared to go out.
and I don't think they've got any better, to be honest with you, Phil.
They have, because people, their comms is still appalling.
Yes, that's what I mean.
But people still know what some of their policies are. They just don't. They're saying people know what the policies are. What they don't see is them being done. They think they could have just done overnight.
I've got some super chats to go through, but I do want to take you to task on that one, because I think that, from the surveys that I've seen, that people associate things with Labour, when you have the word clouds up or whatever, hardly any of their big flagship policies are coming up.
No, that's a different thing. That's not asking for policies. When you ask people about policies familiar with, actually they are familiar with a lot of Labour's flagship policies.
Like?
That is in the polling. Like, for example, the green energy, like hiring more teachers, like getting NHS waiting lists down, boosting workers' rights. The border force task force thing comes up a lot. The what was the other one? Normalising relations with the EU. There were quite a lot of their flagship policies people actually did know about when you looked at polling. What they don't see is them being done.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of policies that people think that Labour had that they didn't actually have.
Yeah, but you always get that. But the flagship ones, and this is what I mean about why, for example, young people always feel that politicians are ignoring them. Some are, some are not. The reason why they feel that is because you've basically got like 5 policies that you can announce to the country. They can't keep any more than that in the Reds. So they will generally know your top 5 policies. And they do. But I'm telling you, in 2019, they didn't know what Labour's top 5 policies were. And I know that.
And their comms were shit.
Then.
So now that they've got slightly better with the policies.
Their campaigning is better. Their campaigning is better, and their comms is still shit.
The comms are absolutely dog shit. And they're not going to get any better unless Labour panic. And I think your attitude of, they're going to win the next election. So
I didn't say they're going to win the next election. What I said is polling right now, people think shows they're going to lose it. But I'm telling you, polling right now says they're going to win it.
Okay, cool. You're saying they're going to win it. What's the problem?
No, I'm not.
Continue on.
I'm saying that people say that they're going to vote Labour based on what I know is coming and they don't know is coming, right? But I am also going to say, for example, so Labour's clean energy stuff, right? What if it doesn't work out? What if they find that it's more difficult than they thought, particularly with Reform UK councils trying to block it and delay it? What if which is already supposed to be difficult, their housing targets, what if it's not just that they don't quite meet them, what if they get nowhere near? There are issues of competency, which I cannot confidently talk about until I start to see things built. So I cannot comment on that until 2027. What I'm saying is, in terms of their plans, people polled are saying, I will vote for this. I will vote for Labour if they deliver this. So if they deliver it, but some of what they're trying to deliver is not easy. So that is the main issue there. But again, coming back to what you're talking about, I've forgotten it now. You kept saying something. I kept trying to say something. Then you kept saying something else. I'll come back to you in a minute. It'll come back to me.
I will vote Labour if I just know that there's so many people who don't give a shit about politics and just go out once every 5 years.
Oh yeah, they do. Oh no, we know that. And that's another thing.
The vast majority of people, and to actually sit down and go, I will vote Labour if ... shows they've actually put some political thought in it, and I think that's a vanishing minority.
No. It's quite the opposite. I know that's a fact.
Okay, well, you can tell me in a second why it's because I've really got to get through these super chats that came about half an hour ago. Brad
Just one
W.
thing before I forget it.
Go on.
So, in terms of that, you're talking about these people saying, that's it, I'm not voting Labour again, but you've just contradicted yourself because, as we know, the vast majority of key voters, the people, some of these people you're talking to are probably not even key voters, the vast majority of key voters hate politics right now. The reason my views are down this year is because a lot of moderate people who are vaguely interested in politics are no longer, because it's toxic, right? So they're literally only going to pay attention come the next election. They're not paying attention to any of this shit going on right now. That is not affecting them in the slightest. So you're talking about people, the people who are going to swing the next election right now are not really thinking about it at all. They'll wait until the next election. So as long as come the next election, things are looking up, that will be all that matters.
Well, I hope so. So we got Brad. Thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Can some get Phil and Graham cannabis to calm down? We need some cannabis, apparently.
No, I don't do drugs.
I don't do drugs either. Sorry to disappoint you. Being really boring. I
am very hot though, so I
never
will
have, never will.
You can blame Nigel Farage for that as well. He's pro climate change.
Except alcohol. Someone's writing in the chat now already, all caps on. What about alcohol? I've seen you drink alcohol. I'm just like, well,
very rarely.
Not exactly.
I can't remember the last. I had a cider a few weeks ago.
Oh, disgraceful behaviour. Andy Thompson, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. I like the format of the show. Graham, playing the voice of the people, says something with complete confidence, throws his pen down, and laughs with triumph, and then Phil tells him he's utterly wrong. Yeah, cheers. And then
I'm going to discuss anything on a mathematical basis.
Aaron,
my bugbear is people in politics knowing nothing about statistics, and it's a complex matter.
Yes,
but you have almost no mathematicians in politics.
That's very true. But then there is the propensity for people to look at the numbers rather than look at the emotions
there's
that
a propensity,
drive humans to do
there's a
daft
propensity
shit.
For people to talk to 6 people and think they can get the pulse of the nation.
Oh, no, I'm referring. I'm
nation.
referring to polling that come in that have RefUK 10 points ahead of Labour. I mean, I saw one poll that had Labour down at 19% or something.
But you've got that's the bullshit one.
Right,
Ignore that completely. Right. That is your crow's entrails. It was funny. It was like the electoral calculus stuff is hilarious when it said that when Liz Truss was in charge, the Tories would literally get no seats. But we all knew that wasn't true either. It was just funny, right? But they're not serious. Their results were maddeningly wrong at the last election.
I would wrong. Just to sort of what would be a useful outcome of this discussion that we're having now is not Labour to think, it'll be fine. I don't want Labour to be thinking it'll be fine. I want Labour panicking and going, shit, we're going to have to do something about our terrible,
you don't want them panicking either. Right. Think of it in football terms. So you're watching your team and they're 3-0 up. You can't see the scoreboard, so you don't realise they're 3-0 up. That's your position, right? You don't realise they're 3-0 up. Now, you can be complacent at that point. Particularly it's like half time, you've got one half to go, you're 3-0 up, right? You can be complacent. You can go, right, I'm having a great old time. Yeah, I can relax. You don't want your team to, because there have been teams who are 3-0 up at half time and then lose the match, right? So you want the players on the field to constantly think they're playing as if they have to win and are behind. That's the mindset you always want.
ABC, always be campaigning.
It's the same, yeah. And that's what you want from Labour as well. So it's not like saying we want Labour to be complacent. But at the same time, if your team is 3-0 up and they panic, they will lose that lead.
Okay.
You don't want them panicking either. What you want them to do is to be calm and collected and to get the right advisors.
Yes, that would be nice.
I think there's a fortress mentality in Downing Street. I think that's the problem.
Do you think if they continue in the way they're going with this terrible comms, shit advice, and just picking a different minority to upset each week, do you honestly think they're going to win the next election outright?
I don't know whether they're going to win the election outright or at all. What I'm going to say is comms is a massive issue, and you cannot downplay how serious it is that their communications is terrible.
No.
But at the same time, it doesn't guarantee they will lose. It does make it more likely that they will lose. I don't downplay it. In fact, I spent all my time talking on my own channel as well, neurotically so, about how terrible not just from Labour, on the left in general. I'm going to have a moan at all of you, everyone on the left, on social media.
Well, we'll be doing this IRL, won't we, on Monday the 29th of September in Liverpool at the Ship and Mitre. We're going to be upstairs at the Ship and Mitre. Just by the entrance to the Queensway Tunnel. And if you'd like to join us in that, will be an Eventbrite link coming up, and the tickets are going to be free, but you can donate some money if you'd like to help us out with our bus fares. Because obviously I've got to come from Durham. You've got to come from Lincolnshire.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Then again, I mean, we're both under the yoke of the refuckers, aren't we? You've got a mayor.
Well, mayor, it's not
a nightmare.
My particular council is not quite.
Yeah, no, but
it will be next. It'll go there. Because I can't remember whether I don't look actually. It might be next year. If it's next year, we're going to be a Reform UK council. If it's the year after, maybe not. So because by then the Best Start centres should be up. And honestly, I think that could be massive on its own. I think that could be massive.
Maybe the discussion could be why are the left so shit at comms? Maybe I'll think of a more snappy title.
That is literally I'm discussing this with someone when they were supposed to do it yesterday, but then they were busy. So, I mean, that's another thing. Why are the left so shit at like diaries? Getting people together is a nightmare.
Yes.
None of you have got any time management skills.
I do. I managed
to
do
you're actually one of the better ones.
2 years of doing a Friday night social every night at half night.
And you did go around the world without flying, which takes organisation.
Yeah, there was a lot of organisation.
By and large, people on the left have zero organisation.
But when it comes to trying to get shows together, when there's someone else on the show, it is difficult. There are certain people like you and Ollie and Rachel who I can completely rely on, and I know that you're definitely going to be there each week, and that's fantastic. But then there's others. And one of the difficulties is with doing this is like if you get a really good person on, not necessarily one of our gang, but someone to come in and talk about it, and you publicize it, and then they drop out at the last minute because they're not getting paid. They're not, there's something.
This is why I would never do that. I would never do it. I've had very few people on my channel anyway, and only one of them I asked. Everyone else asked me. But I'm having my second person that I've asked on soon. Yeah. But I would never do it as a live thing. I would always just record it and it can go out as a video.
Well, that's what Political X, Alex Kerr. One of the things that has happened a couple of times when we've recorded Sunday Roast is there's been somebody in the chat and their internet's gone off. So we had it with Russ in Cheshire, Russ
Jones.
Always happen. And his internet just failed, and he had to text us and go, "Sorry, I can't go on with this."
My Wednesday stream from my members failed. I think it's probably because of the heat. It doesn't usually do it, but it did. It just completely conked out, and I had to do it last night instead.
All right, we need to just jump back into the chat because we have got some more super chats, and there is a vigorous discussion going on in the chat as well. No, we want Jeremy Corbyn, not a genocidal PM, says Aaron. Thank you very much for the £2 super chat.
All right, okay. So first of all, obviously Starmer is not. In fact, if anything, he has prosecuted genocide. And again, I don't, but we're going to say it. Corbyn is pro-genocide. He has been pro every genocide that has been committed in my lifetime except one. That is what I call pro-genocide. He was on Assad's side. He's on Putin's side. He will tell you there's no issue with going on in Xinjiang at all in China. He has not a word to say about what's going on in Sudan. Why do people in Sudan not matter? They're being burned alive. They're being starved.
You sound like you're doing a bit of whataboutism here, Phil.
It's not a whataboutism. That's what they try and tell you. That is what they will try and tell you. It's whataboutism. No, it's not. Whataboutery is when you try and change the subject. This is the same subject. What I'm saying is, why does he not condemn any genocide unless it's committed by Jews? I'm not criticising him for attacking the genocide in Palestine. I'm criticising him for not attacking any other genocide in history.
Well,
or in recent
arguably,
history. Name one. Honestly, a Corbyn fan, name me one. Show me one source of him criticising a genocide. One.
So
I'll take one.
With in respect to Russia, if Russia is allowed to keep Ukrainian land and it's given up, which is what him and others on the left seem to want from day one, which is just like
they've said so.
Lay down your arms and let the Russians do what they will. Close your eyes and think of Ukraine. Think of Mother Russia. And this idea that the Ukrainians shouldn't fight to maintain their land means that down the road, every single tin pot dictatorship with a neighbour next door with some natural resources, some nice little oil or rare earth minerals, they will just invade, whether it's Rwanda invading the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, or whether it's Venezuela, supported by that guy, threatening or having a referendum to invade their neighbor Guyana for the oil, not for the people, not to liberate the people from Nazis. Just they're not even pretending. They're just like, no, we want the oil. There's loads of oil there. We want the oil. They weren't interested before then. They just they had this sort of zone to be reclaimed that was on all their maps for a long time, but they never really made a concerted effort to stake their claim over 2/3 of the neighboring country. I think down the road, the number of people who will die if countries just think, I could just invade my neighbour. That's fine.
Putin's had 20 years of doing this. It doesn't stop. It's not after one thing and that's it. It doesn't stop. He's even said so. It wants a lot of Europe.
Nothing's going to come out of today. Nothing's going to come out of today. Ms. Paula Thomas, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. Phil, if you think people in Bethnal Green and Stepney are going to forgive Rashara Ali, or those in Holborn and St Pancras are going to forgive Keir Starmer, you have another thing coming.
That's up to them. But at the moment, you've got absolutely. If you think you've got some basis for saying that, again, you have to avoid falling into the trap of I think like this, and so do 3 people I talk to. Therefore, everyone thinks like this.
What group haven't they upset?
Like the vast majority of people. Like
Labour.
Yeah.
They haven't upset the vast majority of people.
No.
Have you got some polls to back that up?
Well, we can see that.
Well, you can, because Reform just absolutely swamped the elections here in Durham, which is a Labour seat.
Yeah, because they think Reform UK were better. It doesn't mean they hate Labour. It just means the winter fuel payment did a lot of damage. But I would also say that you say they swamped it.
Okay, so pensioners.
3 people. What happened was a load of people just stayed away. That's really what happened.
Well, you got pensioners. They upset the pensioners. That's
they massively upset pensioners. But the situation now is, how do you upset pensioners now?
Well, they did upset them.
They did upset them.
Yes. And it's not like people don't like to hold a grudge. Come on.
I said at the time, I didn't even have to wait for a backlash. I said at the time, if they haven't done their homework on this, this is a bold policy. What
group in society or groups in society can we say are like Labour have done a really good job in cheering up, placating?
Well, none at all, because that's because their comms is shit.
That's worrying.
None at all.
That's incredibly worrying.
Of course it's worrying. But at the same time, that was the point I was going to make earlier. So when you're saying is, they're not going out and they're not, why didn't they talk about stuff like the minimum wage and stuff like that? And it's because, and they should, but it's because they don't know how to. But I'll tell you what they do know how to, because they have already done some of this. They know how to go to a construction site or a new building with a giant oversized pair of clown scissors, right? They know how to do that, and there'll be lots of that coming. So the thing about the Best Start centres, they won't be hiding away from that. They'll be out, they will be going straight to them. The first one that opens its doors, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer and Wes Streeting will be there, and Angela Rayner. In fact, the whole lot of them will be there probably, half the bloody cabinet, right? The second one that opens, they'll be there as well. Yeah. So what's going to happen is in 2027, there's going to be things completed. Now, if they're not completed, then they're completely housed, because that means they didn't actually have a sufficiently good plan to do it. But in 2027, there's going to be physical things opening, and Labour are going to be dragging the Fleet Street's best over there to publicise it. They're going to be doing that on a regular basis, because they know how to do that. This is their problem. They don't know how to publicise intangible things. And they don't know how to use social media, but they know how to go out and do a standard press event, an opening. Politicians have known how to do openings for 200 years.
Yeah. I just don't think it's going to shift the needle. And when you say, I think I probably used the wrong word, they need to panic and do something about it. I just mean they need to look at what's happening and actually respond to it.
What they need to do
and I don't think it's helpful to say, well, they'll probably win anyway.
No, I didn't say that. I've never said that. I've said consistently, I don't know whether they're going to win.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the polling right now does not say they're going to lose.
Right.
Well, it doesn't say that.
That means they're going to win, right?
We don't know, because we don't, put it this way. If at the next election, 95% of our energy comes from clean sources, And as a result, they've been able to reduce. We know they're reducing some energy bills next year, right? But I don't know that that's going to be in politically sensitive areas because it's related to location to pylons, right? But if they deliver the vast majority of what Ed Miliband's trying to do, if Angela Rayner can get, even if it doesn't quite hit the target, but if we get a significant increase in social and affordable housing to the point where the housing market stops overheating and people have better access to housing and people can see more construction taking place, if local transport is significantly improved, if people are feeling the benefits of the improved renters' rights, because that's huge, workers' rights, if people are seeing that their income's going up, if we've somehow got this sticky inflation down, which actually, given that the two things driving it, food prices, which the government can't do much about, but energy prices, which they can, if water companies have been beaten into submission by then,
or sold to China,
if these things happen, then I think, yes, there's a very good chance Labour win. But none of those things are easy. None of those things are as simple as going, well, this is my policy, therefore it will happen.
But also, if the buses get better here in Durham, people aren't going to thank the Labour Party for it. They're going to thank RefUK because they're the county council here.
There is that possibility.
Do you know what I mean?
Can't be helped.
And they'll scream that from the hillside.
Yeah, that's
from
fine.
The rooftops.
That's fine.
They'll be like, hey, everyone, lighting the
sure.
beacons.
Sure.
Phil, we've got to wrap it up because I need to get going. But before we do, we've got a load of super chats that I haven't got through. Sorry for leaving everyone for so long, hanging for so long. Aaron, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Do you get more characters for a tenner then, bloody capitalists? I don't know, mate. I don't know. And then, did we have? We did. Aaron saying £5 super chat. Thank you again, Aaron. Try listening to every public statement by Starmer right from the 8th of October 2023. I did it. That's a reference to Starmer being...
If you're trying to suggest that he's pro-genocide, you absolutely did not, because I've actually got... Because I had to use this. Someone on Novara Media tried to tackle me on this one, trying to talk about Starmer and Lammy's position from that point. And I had a whole list of their statements. I started reading and said, okay, we'll leave it. So don't give me that one.
Okay, and finally, and this is going to have to be the final word, I'm afraid. Paula, thank you so much for the £10 super chat. I hold a master's degree in mathematics. Does Phil really think people are going to feel the good things Labour are doing are going to be felt by the next election? Because I don't.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we're not talking about something new. The things that not everything that they're planning on comes before the next election, which is like, risking a bit. But of the ones that are, we saw it under the last Labour government, and we saw at the time people absolutely noticed it. So why wouldn't they again? People particularly, I know people have been warped a bit these days, but they're not stupider than they were back then.
I think that unless Labour turn the ship around and start publicising what they're doing and getting people on side and going after communities in a good way to get those communities on side and those minorities on side and those groups on side and make a concerted effort to communicate and to be better at what they're doing, governing the country, I can't see them winning a majority in the next election. I really can't.
I can, but again, I don't know that they definitely will. Just last one, Colin Baker's asking there why government isn't taking over Thames Water, because they can't afford it. Although the likes of Fergal Sharkey going, oh no, it don't cost £100 billion, they're making that up based on this report. What they don't understand, or are pretending not to understand, is it's got nothing to do with the cost of taking over Thames Water. It's to do with the cost of building the infrastructure. They can't do it. If the government take over Thames Water carries on being shit because the government cannot afford to build reservoirs or anything.
Oh, Phil.
Like that. They've already maxed out the credit card.
Just cut out. Your internet just gave up because of the heat, I think. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we've discussed about about Thames Water and the future of that. But again, I don't think this should be up to you as a YouTuber to have to explain to everyone when you're not being paid by the Labour Party to do this, when they've got hundreds of people who work for Labour who seem to be just sitting there doing nothing all day. I don't know what they spend their time doing. But this is
I don't know what they spend their time doing.
This is a party that when they're given a chance to work with creatives who are actually making stuff happen and doing politics stuff on YouTube, they either say, oh, well, no, we don't want to talk to you. We want to talk to an agency instead because that'll be much better. And they'll take £100,000 from us and do some shit. Or even better, they get people who don't make political stuff and they'll take them into number 10 and say, will you make some political stuff for us? And these influencers will go, no, which is what they did last month, which was just absolutely bizarre. Anyway, Phil appears to have frozen, so I'm going to have to leave him there, and I'm going to have to leave you. So thank you so much for watching. I'll be back at 9:30 tonight with the...
My internet actually did go.
Oh, yes, your internet did go. You were frozen. You were frozen, mate. It was awful. It was very awkward. We had an awkward moment. I was just saying, I'll be back at 9:30 tonight. If you can't join us for that, I hope you have a great weekend. Phil, thank you so much for chatting with us this afternoon. I hope you have a good weekend as well. And thanks very much to everyone who joined the chat and everyone who gave us super chat. Thank you. Really appreciate it. See you at 9:30. Until then, hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.